Hello everyone, my name is Ian and you're watching Big Rock Moto, your home for the most detailed motorcycle reviews on the net. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing if you appreciate content like this. A huge thank you to Triumph USA for allowing me to test all 4 different versions of the Tiger 1200. The GT Pro, the GT Explorer, the Rally Pro, and the Rally Explorer. This Rally Explorer model is the last of the 4 models that I'm going to be testing, and we're going to change things up a little bit for how I structure today's review as compared to my normal videos. So first, I'm going to show you the riding position like I always do. I'm going to take you on a tour and quickly cover the specs of the bike. Then we're going to take the bike on an overnight camping trip. So we're going to do some adventure touring with the bike, including doing some off-road riding. Then we're going to come back here, briefly discuss the competition, and then we'll have some final thoughts. So with that, let's get riding. Let's briefly look at the riding position and seat height of the Rally Explorer model. So seat height, 34.5 inches. I'll put the millimeters here down below. So these Rally models are taller than the GT models because they're the off-road versions with the longer suspension. So let me jump up and show you here. So the first thing that I notice when I'm getting on this bike is it's quite physically large, heavy, and it seems to carry a lot of its weight up high. So in terms of the riding position, you can see here, extremely comfortable. Tiny forward lean to the bars, a lot of leg room, comfortable seat. The cockpit is an amazing place to be for long periods of time. The seat height, you can see that the bike is fairly tall. I'm 5'10", about 180 centimeters tall. I have a 32-inch leg inseam. I weigh about 200 pounds or about 90 kilograms. And you can see that I'm not able to flat foot on both sides. If I scoot my butt off the seat, I can flat foot on one side. Normally, I wouldn't put both feet down on the ground for any reason ever, really. But you can see it's still a pretty tall bike. Now, in terms of being top heavy, I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say it definitely feels top heavy. Does it feel more top heavy than a GS Adventure? I'm gonna have to say that it does. The fuel tank is almost full on this bike, and it feels like if you lean it much more than about right there, that it's gonna start to fall over. So if you're gonna buy one of these, make sure you test ride it if you can, or at least get some time on it to feel the weight and the height and sort of the balance of the bike, because if you're not a tall person or you're not a strong person, this is a pretty big, heavy motorcycle to deal with. All right, let's take a tour around the bike, show you some of the specs and features of this model. So the Rally Explorer model, as you can see here, this is basically the largest and most off-road oriented in their lineup. So I have reviews of all the other bikes, I'll link those below. And I'm also gonna link my model guide below, which sort of shows you the 5 different models in the Tiger 1200 range and the main differences between them. So what you need to know about the Rally Explorer, the Rally means that it's the off-road version, so it's got the spoked wheels and it's got the 21-inch front wheel, longer suspension travel. The Explorer means that you get this huge 8-gallon or 30-liter fuel tank. You get some additional crash bars, some additional features like heated seats, and I'm going to show you all that here in a minute. So first of all, the price, we should mention that. So this bike comes in base price $24,200 US. That does not include the luggage that you see here on this model. And of course the weight, the bike weighs 575 pounds or about 261 kilograms, making it a little bit lighter than BMW's top level GS 1250 Adventure. The bike has a 34.5-inch seat height that is adjustable. If you want it higher, you can raise it up a little bit. The suspension travel is 8.7 inches, and it is the Showa electronically adjustable suspension. We're going to show that here in the riding segment. And now let's just take a tour around the bike. Why don't we start at the front? So you've got this signature big LED headlight. You've got LED turn signals. I'm not going to spend too much time because if you've watched my other Tiger 1200 reviews, you've seen a lot of this stuff already. Windshield, which is adjustable, the little winglets you get, these are kind of extra on this model. Handguards, plastic handguards, but they're actually fairly sturdy, so I appreciate that. 21-inch spoke front wheel, Brembo brakes, really powerful. Tubeless wheels, I should mention that. This comes with the Messler Karoo street tires, which are kind of an 80/20 tire. You can see the signature 3 exhaust pipes up there. The Rally Explorer comes with the fog lights, which are very nice. These crash bars, I'm going to put this down here in the description or in the text right here, because I'm not sure if these upper crash bars come on this model or if it's just the lower crash bars, but I'll clarify that in the text right here on the video. Moving around here, you can see you can flip this brake lever around actually and make it higher or lower for off-road riding. The rubber things do pull out of the foot pegs. I'm going to take them off for my testing. You can see the two-piece seat, large 8-gallon 30-liter fuel tank, all the controls which I've talked about kind of in my other reviews. I'm not going to go through all these again, but you have pretty good physical controls for all the main stuff that you care about. And of course, here are the blind spot indicators in the mirrors. Now this luggage is obviously an extra cost, and I'll try to find the cost and put that here in the text, but it does have, this bike has the 3-piece luggage. Some things I like about it: it's very, very high quality, very well made, whoever makes this for them. And also it's very narrow, relatively narrow. Look how narrow the pannier racks are. They kept them nice and tight to the bike, and so I think that's a nice thing that they did. You can see the rear mudguard, LED tail light. The turn signals also act as brake lights when you're on the brakes, so they're red, which I really like. It's a great feature that Triumph has. Coming around this side, you can see kind of their unique design for their shaft drive, which in my opinion performs a lot better than a BMW shaft drive. You don't get that kind of bucking or jerking feeling off-road that the BMWs have. So kickstand, shift lever, all that kind of normal stuff. I also want to come down here and kind of show you the skid plates. You can see it's kind of this hybrid metal plastic design. And the coverage is actually, it's not bad. It's pretty decent. I'm comfortable enough taking this in some mild off-roading. Wouldn't want to bash anything too crazy, but yeah, it looks like it's a pretty decent design how they've mounted it, and it should hold up to some moderate off-roading. All right, I'm going out on this overnight trip, right, to test this Tiger, and literally there's like no rain in the forecast, right? And then if you can see, look at the sky behind me. It's like getting all dark, and it's starting to rain right now. Like, it's crazy. It's not supposed to rain today, but anyway, may have to throw in the rain gear in addition to all the camping gear. Just an overnight trip. Like, I'm wearing mesh gear because it's still warm even though it's October where I live. So let me flip around and kind of show you the Tiger a little bit. So here's the Tiger 1200 Rally Explorer, the big boy. She's all ready to go. I do have to admit that it was pretty easy to just jam all my camping gear and food and clothes into these hard bags, close up the hard bags, and pretty much jump on the bike and go. I'm not really someone who, I don't really approve of hard luggage on adventure bikes if you're going to go off-road, because it's very dangerous for your legs and there's other issues with them. But they sure are convenient. I don't really like how high and far back this is, but of course they did that for passenger room. But anyway, it is fine. I mean, I'm only going for, you know, a 24-hour trip, and I'm not going to do any serious off-roading with this huge bike with these street tires. Yeah, these tires are not really gonna cut it for much off-roading, and I don't want to mess up Triumph's bike. I did throw on the Moto Gnome tank bag. This is one of the newer bags. I like having a tank bag on trips all the time because I keep my GoPro charger in here. I've got a big battery bank thing. I can keep, you know, batteries and just electronics. It's just a nice place to have that. And I have a cord here, so I've got USB charging. Even though this is a loaner bike, I just ran a quick cord to the battery and have these little USB chargers. I can charge up my stuff, which is important for me because I'm always filming everything. So yeah, I don't think it's gonna rain too much, but I guess we'll find out. It looks a little threatening, but we're gonna start riding, and I'm riding that way, so I think we'll get out of the rain. So enough chatter, let's get to the ride. All right, so I've been riding for a little while now, and there's a few things that have already really stood out to me kind of starting my trip on this bike. When you jump on this bike and you have some miles in front of you, you're just greeted by a very luxurious, comfortable, refined, technologically advanced motorcycle that just encourages you to want to take a long trip, right? The weather protection is extraordinarily good for an adventure bike. I would say it really is every bit as good as a BMW GS Adventure, not the standard GS but the GSA, which is saying a lot because that's pretty much the benchmark there for weather protection on a adventure bike. The windshield adjusts very easily with one hand, and it's very sturdy. It doesn't flop around quite as much as the BMW windshields do. Of course, you've got all the features. I mean, you've got, on this model, you've got fog lights, heated grips, heated seats, cruise control, which I can go ahead and engage right now. There's cruise control. It works very well, very smooth. I've talked about the engine vibration on my other reviews of the 1200. It is present at certain RPMs. It seems to be around 5,000 RPM, which is much faster than I'm allowed to go on this road. So right now it's just dead smooth. I don't feel any vibration at all at around 4,000 RPM. The seat does feel a little soft, but we'll find out how that works. The riding position is, I feel like I'm just a tiny bit more forward than on some bikes, but that's okay. I think that helps get more weight into the front tire for better handling. The other things I noticed, well, of course, the engine growl. I mean, you know, you just can't resist that. It sounds so good. One of the things I love most about these 1200s is the way the engine has this intake roar that's just incredible. It's so intoxicating. You just want to keep riding faster and faster. The quick shifter, very smooth, definitely smoother than on the GS. So that's a nice thing to have a real smooth quick shifter. So yeah, as a touring bike, you know, and I've said this about the other ones that I've reviewed, you can't ask much more than this. And if you're okay, you know, with the height and sort of the weight and kind of how tall it is, you know, then you're gonna absolutely love this motorcycle. It's really so well engineered. The complaints I've had before, they still apply. So the switch gear, like, I'm still never going to get used to this menu button being where the turn signal usually is. So every time I go for the turn signal, I end up going into the menu instead of activating the turn signal. But these are small complaints. The switchgear is backlit, which I absolutely love that. I think that's great. So fuel mileage, I reset my fuel mileage when I left the house. So I'm going to track it for this whole trip and see, you know, what we get there with the fuel mileage. I'm thinking around 45 to 50, which, if so, with 8 gallons of gas, oh, there's a KLR, with 8 gallons of gas on board, that should give me well, an enormous range, over 300 miles, or whatever that is, 500 kilometers plus. That's pretty incredible fuel range. All right, so our pavement has ended. We're now going to head into the dirt. So jam that windshield down there to have a better view. I'm going to try putting the bike in the standard off-road mode. So to change the ride modes on these Tigers, you have this dedicated mode button here. So we'll hit that. Now, you can customize the settings within each of these modes, which is really amazing. I really love that customization ability. So off-road mode, ABS off-road, which is still on, just less intrusive, off-road throttle map, off-road traction control, and then suspension is about halfway up, but it's off-road damping. Again, you can customize that. They also have off-road pro, and that's pre-configured to turn your ABS off completely at the back wheel, turn your traction control off entirely, which I personally don't like. I would customize this. But the thing is, the traction control is one area that they can improve on these Tigers. I tested this with the Rally Pro model. They don't have enough different settings in the traction control, in my opinion. So anyway, we're going to go to the off-road mode, and then if I don't like it, then I'll stop and I'll customize that a little bit. So one thing I am noticing for sure with this motorcycle is that it's already pretty tall, right? But it's top heavy. Now, yes, I do have all of my hard cases on and are full of camping gear and water and food. So I probably got, I mean, this bike weighs 575 pounds. I probably got another 50 pounds of stuff. So I'm at 625 pounds right now. And a lot of that weight is up pretty high in the luggage. And I've got a full fuel tank, 8 gallons of gas. So this thing is a beast. And it feels like at low speed, or like just if I tip the bike at all, like it feels like it's going to fall over very easily. So I would just say use a lot of caution at low speed. Anyway, let's get going. Oh, and on the dashboard, one thing I've kind of found is that when you're in the normal dash, you don't really have much information here other than like a thermometer, and that's about it, and a clock. But if you go into here and like select your fuel readout, you can leave this on here while you're riding and it stays up. So I can see, you know, fuel range. Now I can do other things like trip meter. I could leave the trip meter up here and you can see I've gone 30 miles, which is pathetic. Not much of a big adventure rider going on 30 miles. Anyway, now I don't really have knobby tires and I have a lot of weight on an already huge bike, so I'm not going to be doing anything crazy or riding super aggressively with this setup for obvious reasons. But you know, when I tested the Rally Pro model, I was incredibly impressed with the off-road capabilities and kind of ride quality and chassis tuning of that bike, and I think I'm going to feel similarly about this bike. Just going around like these dirt corners, I really have to conscientiously kind of get my weight forward to try to get some pressure into the front tire, because what it does is, you know, especially when you have loaded panniers, there's too much weight on the back of the bike and the front tire just can't bite in. So a lot of people end up, you know, washing out their front end on dirt roads because they're not getting their body forward enough. Like, and you really have to stand up on these bikes because you can't sit far forward enough. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent, but yeah, you need to get some weight into that front tire. Okay, so I made a mistake. The bike was still in the road mode, so the electronics are a little fussy on these Tigers. I've complained about that before. When you scroll through the riding modes and you select your riding mode, you actually haven't selected it. It's like just browsing. In order to confirm it, you have to hold down this enter button down below, and I forgot to do that. But the problem is, you see on the screen here, there's really not an indication of what mode you're in. There's a little graphic of a mountain, but I don't know what a mountain is. I guess that's off-road, but it should say like off-road mode or off-road pro mode somewhere, and it doesn't. So you don't even know like if you actually change modes or not unless you memorize the symbol. And so yeah, that's why the traction control was like was just cutting in every time, because I actually wasn't in off-road mode. So anyway, now I'm in the normal off-road mode, and it's a lot more as I would expect it. Whoa. The rear shock, something doesn't even feel right with the rear shock. It's like bottoming out right away every time I hit anything. But I think I'll maybe change the damping a little bit. Off-road Pro. Let's try off-road Pro mode. Okay, TCS disabled, ABS disabled. Yeah, traction control's off. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know, something just doesn't feel right with this suspension on the back. Alright, well, I think there's actually legitimately something wrong with this particular bike, just because the rear suspension, even when I've been standing up and just riding really like gently, the rear suspension just crashes and bottoms out over almost anything, and it just can't be like, that can't be right. It feels like there's no damping in it, like it's just blown, you know. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm gonna have to talk to Triumph about it. Whoa, see, right there, like it just completely smashed into the bump stop. But other than that, it feels pretty good. But it makes it very difficult to ride because I have to slow down for every little bump, and the back end is just going like that. Alright, so I've got thunder and lightning right over there, which is fascinating and dramatic, adds some drama to this whole ride. I'm still trying to figure out the darn suspension on this thing, so I've been playing with it. I put it in road damping, I turned the damping all the way up, I've tried off-road mode, off-road pro, I've played with the damping, and it just feels to me like there's just not enough damping. Like even on the front, I was standing up, put my way forward, went through some ruts, and I was just bottoming out the front too. So very, very strange. I was not expecting that. Wow, it doesn't get much better than this. It's getting close to sunset, getting close to camp. What a beautiful evening out here. Perfect temperature, nice cool weather. So I had a crazy thing happen. I stopped in the last town to get some some snacks for camp, and I opened the top case, and I had made the huge mistake of bringing a banana with me. And the banana somehow got loose of its, like, out of the bag, and I had tried to secure it pretty well, but I underestimated how much jostling around all the stuff in the top case was gonna, would be off-road. So long story short, I had smashed banana on every single thing in my top case: my jacket, my tire gauge, my charging cables, the rest of my food. Like, I spent 20 minutes with like paper towels trying to clean off the damn smashed banana. So there's a lesson. Just don't bring bananas with you if you're gonna do off-road riding. It just gets smashed no matter what you do. So, but in terms of a sport touring bike, long distance riding, I mean, the seat's actually pretty comfortable so far. And I mean, the bike is an amazing road bike, there's no doubt about it. And just listen to the engine. Good morning from the Laguna Mountains of Southern California, almost at the border with Mexico. Had a good night last night in the tent. Fell asleep listening to some podcasts. It's great to get out and just do an overnight on the bike, even if it's just one night like this. So let me kind of flip around and show you camp a little bit. So I am actually in a campground. I prefer to pay the 20 bucks and have a bathroom and have running water, potable water, stuff like that. Just makes it easier for me. You can see here's my little tent here where I camped last night. All my sleeping gear in there. Pretty comfortable, although I might need to get a thicker sleeping pad. Definitely not getting any younger, I'll tell you that much. Just packing up camp this morning. So let's go over and take a quick look at the bike. So, I've had some more time to kind of reflect on what I think about this bike. So I didn't really have a very good experience with the off-road portion, as you guys probably saw. But man, on the highway, this thing is amazing. I would love to take a really long trip on this bike. It's every bit as good as the BMW for that kind of riding, with the exception maybe of the engine vibration, which only tends to kick in at very high speeds, like above 85 or 90 miles an hour, which we don't have too much of around here. Yeah, what a super comfortable bike. I've got some condensation from the cool weather last night. I can already see these bags, they make your stuff, like, they turn your stuff black. The aluminum does that. I just don't like hard bags. I'm sorry. They are easier to pack, but your stuff also can, like, jostle around inside unless you pack it really tightly, and then things can get messed up, like the banana incident yesterday. So anyway, I'm going to get loaded up here, get geared up, and get back on the highway. All right, we're on one of my favorite twisty roads. Let's give this Rally Explorer some handling test here on the pavement. So I can already tell you that, yeah, you're compromising quite a bit when you go with the 21-inch front wheel for pavement duty. You just are. There's no way around the physics of that situation, and I talked about that in my other Tiger videos. The GT models, God, I love this engine. The GT models handle quite a bit better because they have that smaller diameter front wheel. It's also a wider contact patch on that tire, and the whole geometry of those GT models is better suited for stuff like this. However, that being said, you're still going to have a really good time, and these rally models are still very well sorted out for highway handling, and most people most people probably wouldn't notice really the downside. But so I've turned the suspension damping up pretty far, and I do notice it, I think it is working. I don't know what's going on with the off-road stuff yesterday, but I do notice the damping making a difference as I've been testing it yesterday evening and then this morning, especially over like smaller bumps and when you're on the highway. So let's see, what else can we talk about? It's nice to have heated grips. I used those last night getting into camp. Heated seat is nice. The seat's been comfortable so far on this trip. The wind protection, I mean, dude, this is an awesome touring bike. The other thing that bears mentioning with the rally models is the suspension is longer travel and softer, both of which are bad for street riding, right? So again, it's just those compromises that you have to choose what's most important to you. You see the brake dive? Ooh, it feels slippery. Looks like there's almost like oil on this road, like they've kind of resealed it or something, doesn't it? So let's try to deal with this vibration issue. So this 1200 T-plane engine, they changed the firing order from the old Triumph triples, and it has more torque, it has a different power delivery, it sounds good, but one of the downsides is you do get vibration at a certain RPM. So at around 5,000 RPM, which I'll show you in top gear, doesn't come in till 85 miles an hour. I have to be careful here because that's anyway, I don't want to get a ticket. 85 miles an hour is 5,000 RPM in top gear, right? So above 85 miles an hour, you do feel a buzz come into the whole bike. That's just a characteristic of this engine. If it's a problem for you, that's going to depend on just how sensitive you are to those kinds of things. Some people are very sensitive, some people are not. If you're coming off a Goldwing, yeah, you're not going to like it. If you're coming off, you know, maybe a smaller bike or something with more of a rougher engine, you know, you're not going to really notice it. Also, it's going to depend on the speeds you travel at. So 85 miles an hour is about the speed that the traffic moves on the freeways here in California where I live on a good day if there's no traffic jam. So it's doable for me. It wouldn't really be a deal breaker for me because I'm not traveling above 90 miles an hour for sustained periods of time where I live, because you'll get a ticket, right? All right, I am home. I'm getting stuff unpacked, cleaned up, and before I go any further with that, I wanted to have a few observations about the bike, both good and bad. So why don't I start with the good? So, well, let me start with the fuel economy. So let me turn this on here, and I can show you right there, 44 miles a gallon is what I got on this trip. Now, assuming that's relatively accurate, that's going to give you a range with 30 liters of fuel on board, about 8 gallons of, you know, at least 300 miles, if not way more than that. So that part's really good. Another good part I wanted to share is that, turn that off. Another good part I wanted to share is I want to show you something about the radiator design. So you see on most motorcycles, what's missing here? The radiator should be here, right? But it's not, and this is why this is so brilliant. So if you actually look under here, the radiators are side mounted. So airflow, and I'm gonna tell you why this is so cool. So airflow comes in here and goes through these ducts and goes through the radiators on each side. The reason that is amazing is that whereas on most motorcycles you feel the heat from the engine and the radiator kind of baking your legs, on this bike there's almost no heat. It's incredible, and it really makes riding, doing longer trips or riding in warm weather so much better, because you're not getting that feeling of the bike just burning your legs all day and your feet getting hot and your legs getting hot, pants getting hot. You don't have that. So the hot air kind of goes, and when I was riding, I was trying to feel this, but yeah, the hot air kind of goes out through here, so your leg is here and you just don't feel it. So that's a great design. In terms of the seat comfort, I found the seat comfort to be above average, pretty good. I think most people are going to be pretty happy with that seat. It's up there with some of the best seats I've used. Now, let me talk about the thing that I've really come to dislike, to be quite honest. So it's the electronics, the way that the riding modes work and all the settings work. It's a very frustrating system for multiple reasons. One is how they have the controls set up. So the physical controls are confusing. You've got the turn signal here, you've got the button where the turn signal should be, that's very strange, and then the home button is over here. So if you're doing stuff when you're riding, you've got to kind of use both hands, so that's weird. It's not intuitive to use it. And then when you do change modes and stuff, it doesn't save your settings. So I was actually in Off-Road Pro here, and on the dirt section, and then I went to take off down the steep hill after starting the bike again, or restarting the bike. I took a break to get a photo or whatever, and I didn't know, but the bike had gone back into road mode. And so I'm going down a steep hill and I've got like no brakes because the ABS is now back in road mode, which is very intrusive, even though I had set the bike to this mode. So why is it resetting just when you stop the bike really fast? That's really dangerous and really dumb. I don't like it. Now there is, sometimes what'll happen is it'll come up with a thing on the screen that says, like, when you turn the ignition on, which you do with this button, it'll say, do you want to, like, you have to do a dance on these buttons to get it back to the mode you had previously set. But you can miss that really easily, and it's a bunch of buttons you got to push. It's dumb. It doesn't work well in practice, and you end up not being in the mode you think you're in. So really, I don't love the electronics package on this bike. The traction control doesn't have enough range of adjustment. The way all this works, it's not intuitive. And then when you're riding, so if I can see, like, doing all this, it's just frustrating. Just trust me on this, it's frustrating, because I've used this bike now. So I'm trying to go home. I'm pressing home now, and it's not going back. Okay, there we go. But you see here, and it's still showing that fuel. And then when I try to go back, oh, okay, there we go. You see why I'm frustrated. What riding mode are you in? You can't tell. It doesn't tell. There's a little icon here that shows a highway, but what is that? I don't know. Like, you're gonna have to memorize all these icons, and that's no good. Like, it should say road or rider or off-road pro. It should just say that in physical text, because this is a safety issue. Like, you need to know what the heck mode you're actually in, and then the fact that it resets the modes. Anyway, I've gone on too long, but I don't, after spending, doing an actual trip with this bike, it's become frustrating. I don't like it, and the other systems on other bikes work a lot better. All right, so let's very briefly discuss the competitors to this bike. So I'm really not going to take a deep dive on this because, one, I've kind of done that in my other videos about the Tiger 1200s, and two, I'm producing a separate video which probably will come out just after this about this bike versus its main rival and a bike that it's designed to compete directly against, the BMW R1250GS, which I happen to own. So there's really a couple things that make the Tiger 1200 unique. One is going to be the 3-cylinder T-plane engine. It has a distinct sound, a distinct feel, makes its power in a distinct way versus all of its competitors out there that use either boxer twins or V-twins or parallel twins. So that's one unique thing. The other unique thing is the suspension design and the wheel sizes. So you get an electronically controlled conventional suspension as opposed to telelever on the BMW, and there's some big differences there, but that'll have to wait for another video. Also, this bike offers you the option of the 21-inch front wheel on the rally models, which you cannot get in any of the competition really except for the KTM 1290 Adventurer R. What I will say about this bike versus its competition is that this bike really is right up there with the very best bikes in the category. And the truth is that all the bikes in this sort of full-size adventure category, whether it's a GS, whether it's a KTM, whether it's a Ducati Multistrada, or these Tiger 1200s, they're all, quite frankly, some of the most technologically advanced, highest performing, most amazing all-around motorcycles you can buy today. And this is playing in a very competitive field, and it stacks up very, very well. Final thoughts on the Triumph Tiger 1200 Rally Explorer. If you want some decent off-road capability in a bike, but you also want to cover extremely long distances on the highway, then this bike should be at the very top of your list because it combines things like a shaft drive with a 21-inch front wheel and of course the gigantic fuel tank and amazing weather protection of this specific Explorer model. It's been an absolute pleasure to test and review all 4 of the main models in the Tiger 1200 lineup, and this bike is just as great as all the other ones in that lineup. And if you're shopping for a bike in this full-size high-end adventure category and you want the premium features, this bike should be right in the competition with all the other ones you're looking at. Please don't buy any of the other bikes before you give this a hard look, and hopefully if you can, give this bike a test ride because it's very compelling in many different ways. So I really hope this review has been useful and informative. If it was, please support Big Rock Moto, and there's ways to do that in the description below. Other than that, ride safe, and I'll see you out there.